Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Copperhead Historian and welcome back to Monuments Man. Today we're going to be discussing Battery G of the 1st New York Light Artillery. Now Battery G actually has two monuments here on the battlefield. The first one, and also the main one, is standing right here behind me, as you can see, along Emmitsburg Road. And their second monument is right here, on Hancock Avenue, and marks their position on the second day. Battery G fought in 17 battles and campaigns throughout the Civil War. Some of the most notable include the Siege of Yorktown, Antietam, Fredericksburg, Gettysburg, Malvern Hill, Seven Pines, aka Fair Oaks, Cold Harbor, and the final assault on Petersburg. Battery G was recruited in Elmira, New York, and mustered into service on September 24, 1861, under Captain John Frank, a weaver who hailed from the Kingdom of Württemberg, which was at the time a state in the German Confederation. Early during his command, he was known among his men as a strict disciplinarian. In fact, many of his men signed a petition to have him removed from command due to, quote, harsh and unjust treatment they had suffered under his leadership. After a meeting with 2nd Corps Commander Edwin Sumner, this problem seems to have been solved, as his men reported no complaints afterward. Frank would be discharged from service on April 4, 1863, and Lieutenant Nelson Ames would replace Captain Frank the day after. Ames would later be mustered out on October 15, 1864, and he would also write the unit's regimental history after the war. Prior to Gettysburg, Battery G had seen heavy action in the Peninsula Campaign and at the battles of Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville. They brought 132 men and 6 12-pounder Napoleons to the field. They arrived at Gettysburg on July 2nd and fought in the Peach Orchard with the 3rd Corps for around 2.5 hours. During their engagement, Lieutenant Samuel McClellan, chief of Battery G's rightmost cannons, thought it would be better to load canister as opposed to solid shot, as Captain Ames had ordered, since, even at 600 yards, canister could still be very effective. However, Ames stated that his objective was to knock out the Confederate guns themselves, not try to kill Confederate artillerymen. With the matter resolved, Sergeants Jesse Burdick and James Hutchinson, respective commanders of McClellan's 2 guns, each managed to disable a Confederate artillery piece. An impressive feat when you consider that cannons don't make for large targets at 600 yards. Despite a rocky start to the day, Battery G performed admirably under what was, as Captain Ames described, quote, for a short time, as sharp an artillery fight as I had ever witnessed, end quote. On July 3rd, they were engaged in another, less eventful artillery duel on Cemetery Ridge with 1st Division 2nd Corps during Pickett's charge. They suffered 7 wounded at Gettysburg. During my research, I was fortunate to stumble across an excerpt of Captain Ames's personal account of Gettysburg. It reads, quote, July 1st, we camped near Harney. July 2nd, we marched to a point near Gettysburg where we parked for a short time. The battery was soon ordered to report to Major General Sickles, who commanded the 3rd Army Corps. And as the enemy, under General Longstreet, advanced to the attack, we were ordered by General Sickles to advance and take position on the angle of our line in the Peach Orchard and hold the position at all hazard, as that was the key to that portion of the line of battle. We were engaged in this position from 4 to 7 p.m., and were supported by General Graham's troops of the 3rd Corps, our lines having been broken both on our right and left, and being short of ammunition, it was doubtful if we could save our guns. But after desperate fighting, we were able to save them, and also brought off our wounded with us. During the night of the 2nd, we refilled our ammunition chests, and refitted the battery ready for action. July 3rd. We were in position with the 2nd Corps on the front line of battle and took part in the terrible artillery duel, also in repelling Pickett's charge, and thus ending one of the most fearful battles of the war. End quote. I think this quote helps give some insight into what the war was like on a regimental level as opposed to a huge army level that we usually think about. Now let's turn to Battery G's two monuments. Like I said earlier in the video, Battery G's primary monument is located south of Gettysburg in the Peach Orchard on Emmitsburg Road and marks their position on the second day. And their second monument is right on Hancock Avenue and marks their position on the third day. The primary one stands over 14 feet tall and is accompanied by two 12-pounder Napoleons on either side of it. It's decorated with two bronze reliefs. One depicts the state seal of New York, and the other depicts two crossed cannon barrels, as well as a clover and a diamond, which are the symbols of the U.S. 2nd and 3rd Corps, the two corps which Battery G fought with during the Battle of Gettysburg. The writing on the front of the monument reads, Battery G, Ames's, 1st New York Light Artillery, engaged here with 3rd Corps, 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., July 2nd, 1863. July 3rd, on Cemetery Ridge with 1st Division, 2nd Corps, casualties, 7 wounded. The position marker on Hancock Avenue is also flanked on both sides by 12-pounder Napoleons, but doesn't have much outside of the bare basics. It lists the name of the battery and the date that it took this position. The main monument was dedicated on July 3, 1893, the 30th anniversary of the Great Battle, with 13 veterans of Battery G in attendance. The dedication was described by Captain Ames as such, quote, No one wanted to make a speech, and none was made. Our meeting was like the meeting of a family, and formalities seemed out of place. We dedicated the monument with our tears, prayed for our dead comrades and for each other, and indulged ourselves in loving each other and the flag under which we fought so long and so faithfully. This has all been well and good, but let's get to Battery G's full regimental history. Battery G started off being organized in Elmira, New York on September 22, 1861. After their organization, they were mustered into service under Captain John Frank, 1st Lieutenant Nelson Ames, and 2nd Lieutenant Marshall H. Rundle. On October 31st, they left New York for Washington, D.C. by rail. In November, they were given their 1st Division assignment and were attached to Edwin Sumner's division. They performed duties at Camp Barry with the defenses of Washington. In March of 1862, after a reorganization of the Army of the Potomac by President Lincoln, Battery G was attached to Israel B. Richardson's 1st Division, 2nd Corps. From March 10th through 15th, they advanced on Manassas, Virginia with the rest of the army. From March 28th through 31st, they performed operations on the Orange and Alexandria Railroad at Bealton Station, Warrenton Junction, and Rappahannock Station. On April 3rd, they moved to the Virginia Peninsula, and from April 5th to May 4th, they fought in the Siege of Yorktown, during which they were assigned 2 more guns from Battery A, 2nd New York Light Artillery Battalion, which brought them up to 8 guns and 6 commissioned officers. After the siege, they were reassigned to the newly formed Artillery Reserve of the 5th Corps. From May 31st to June 1st, they were present for the Battle of Seven Pines, also known as Fair Oaks. After Seven Pines, Battery G was attached to the Artillery Reserve of their old 2nd Corps. On July 1st, they fought at the Battle of Malvern Hill as part of the 7 Days Battles. They faced 3 Confederate charges which nearly overran Battery G's position, during which they heavily overloaded the cannons and quickly ruined the barrels. They would act as a rearguard during the retreat to Harrison's Landing. At Harrison's Landing, their worn-out Parrott cannons would be replaced with newer 12-pounder Napoleons. From August 15th through 30th, Battery G moved to Fortress Monroe and then to Centerville, Virginia. They fought in the Maryland Campaign from September 6th through 22nd, during which they were reassigned to the Division Artillery Reserve of the 1st Division, 2nd Corps, and fought in the Battle of Antietam, also known as Sharpsburg. At Antietam, Battery G was commanded by Captain Frank and brought 123 men and 6 12-pounder Napoleons. During the battle, they expended 240 rounds of solid shot, 48 rounds of explosive shot, and about 30 rounds of case shot. They suffered 1 man killed and 4 men wounded. From September 22nd through October 29th, they were given duty at Harper's Ferry, which consisted of reconnaissance to Leesburg from October 1st to 2nd, and reconnaissance to Charlestown from October 16th to 17th. From October 29th through November 19th, Battery G advanced up Loudoun Valley and moved to Falmouth, Virginia through Snickersville, Upperville, Salem, and Warrenton. Jumping ahead to December, from the 12th through the 15th, Battery G fought in the Battle of Fredericksburg. During the engagement, they lost 2 men crossing the Rappahannock on the 12th and fired all of their ammunition on the 13th before they were ordered back across the river. On January 13th, 1863, Captain Frank left Battery G on sick leave of absence. From January 20th through 24th, they partook in Ambrose Burnside's second attempt to cross the Rappahannock, today known as the infamous Mud March, which is commonly remembered by historians as being a good plan, but doomed by external factors such as winter storms and a large number of generals who were already disillusioned with Burnside. From February to April, they were stationed at Falmouth, Virginia. On April 4th, Captain Frank was discharged completely due to medical concerns, and First Lieutenant Nelson Ames was promoted to captain and became the battery's new commander. From May 1st through 5th, Battery G fought in the Battle of Chancellorsville. On May 18th, they were attached to the 1st Volunteer Brigade, Artillery Reserve of the Army of the Potomac. In June, they were attached to the 4th Volunteer Brigade. On June 4th, they began their march with the Army of the Potomac to pursue Lee. On June 24th, they crossed the Potomac at Edwards Ferry in Maryland. On June 28th, they marched past Sugarloaf Mountain in Maryland and made camp around Frederick. On June 29th, they camped near Taneytown and moved to Harney, then known as Monocacyville. From July 2nd to 3rd, they fought at Gettysburg, as we've already discussed. On July 14th, they were present for a small engagement at Falling Waters, 5 miles south of Williamsport, Maryland, but were not actively engaged. From July 15th through 31st, they continued to pursue Lee and crossed the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers at Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. At the end of their pursuit, they arrived at Morrisville, Virginia. While in camp at Morrisville, they were attached to the Artillery Brigade of the 2nd Corps. They fought under Gouverneur Warren at the Second Battle of Auburn and his skirmish with A.P. Hill at Bristow Station. From November 7th to 8th, they advanced to the Rappahannock Line. From November 27th to December 2nd, they fought in the Battle of Mine Run. The rest of the year and the first half of 1864 would be uneventful for Battery G, as they remained in winter camp in Stevensburg, Virginia from December 1863 to May of 1864. During their encampment, 32 men would re-enlist as veteran volunteers. Battery G's campaign year would not begin until May 3rd, when they crossed the Rapidan River on pontoon bridges to join the army at the Wilderness. According to a historical sketch written by Captain Ames, although they were present for the Battle of the Wilderness, they did not fight much, on account of thick woods and the nature of the ground, as it was impossible to maneuver the battery in such a dense thicket. Immediately after the Wilderness, they fought at Spotsylvania Courthouse, and on May 12th fought intense combat for nearly 24 hours at the infamous Bloody Angle. Positioned at the extreme front of the Union line, Battery G engaged the Confederate infantry, often at a range of not even 66 yards. They even managed to capture 22 Confederate guns, of which General Hancock permitted them to use 9 to help fight off the enemy, with infantrymen acting as reinforcements. After Spotsylvania, they continued on the Overland Campaign and fought at North Anna River and Totopotomoy Creek. They then fought at Cold Harbor, and despite being engaged almost every day, they suffered minimal losses. After Cold Harbor, On June 15th, they crossed the James River on pontoon bridges. From there, they arrived at Petersburg on June 16th and fought in several skirmishes consisting of Jerusalem Plank Road, 1st Deep Bottom, the Crater, and 2nd Deep Bottom. In September, their artillery brigade was reorganized into an artillery reserve for the 2nd Corps. On September 27th, 27 men of the battery were discharged at the end of their enlistments. Captain Nelson Ames was also discharged on October 15th after 3 years of service. First Lieutenant Samuel A. McClellan was promoted to captain and became Battery G's new commanding officer. In January of 1865, the battery was attached to the artillery reserve of the 9th Corps. On March 25th, they fought at Fort Stedman, which saw the end of the siege of Petersburg. On April 2nd, they partook in the final assault of Petersburg and broke through Confederate lines after a 9.5-month-long siege. In May, they were transferred to Washington, D.C., and marched in the Grand Review of the Armies. They remained in Washington for roughly 2 weeks until they returned to Elmira by train on June 6th. On June 19th, Battery G was mustered out under the command of Captain McClellan. All in all, Battery G served for 1,367 days, suffered 11 officers and men killed, 31 men wounded, and 15 dead of disease. Anyways, that's all I have for you on this episode of Monuments Man. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's anything I missed, please let me know in the comments, and with that, this is the Copperhead Historian, signing off.